Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in this mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show, letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, CastBox, Podcast Addict, Player FM, Audible, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have a really wonderful show lined up for you today. First up, former Miss USA, the first immigrant and first Arab woman to be named Miss USA, Rima Fakih, and her co-author, Theresa Alhayek, is here to celebrate Brave Buzzy Bee. Later in the show, George Neeb will be here to celebrate heart, cocoa, and courage. And right in the middle of it, we have a brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read to tell you all about. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Marie Nichols was recently on my Connecticut Book Festival's podcast, and what a delightful woman. One of the things she said really struck home with me. She said, parents nurture with care, siblings are taught to share, but grandparents embrace the dares. We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest is a colorful, fun-filled book where this grandmother dares to embark on a wild journey with her grandson into the dinosaur forest. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on bookshop.org. You and your kids and you and your grandkids are going to love this book. It's We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Hey, families, would you like to share a miracle with your kids? At the Wolf Conservation Center, hope was fading. The endangered Mexican wolves dreamed of a pup, but none had come. Until one tiny miracle changed everything. Meet Trumpet, a real-life wolf pup whose incredible birth brought joy, hope, and a lesson in conservation. Trumpet the Miracle Wolf, written by Leocadia George, is a heartwarming true story that will inspire your whole family. Teach your kids the power of hope, love, and protecting endangered species. Get your copy today and join the wild adventure. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Woofy and the Dinosaur Adventures, delightful children's book written by Helen Rogerson. Woofy awakens suddenly to a feeling that his friend Bun needs him. When he arrives at the place his nose leads him, Woofy is confused and doesn't find Bun right away. Then a shout from above leads to an amazing experience as he puts his paleontology skills to work. Together, he, Bun, and a cat that hangs around the site wrap up a wonderful adventure involving a T-Rex skull and a very cool twist of an ending. The story is told in a lyrical style that incorporates actual fossil hunting concepts and vocabulary. If you like dinosaurs, friends who help, and adventures, you will love this book. You can check out Woofy and the Dinosaur Adventures and all the Woofy books at unpackyourownhappy.com. I am very excited. We are about to celebrate a brand new picture book. It's called Brave Buzzy Bee. We have the co-authors on either side of the continent here. First, joining us from California, Rima Fakih Slaby. Hey, Rima.
Hi.
How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thanks for having us.
You are welcome. And joining us from the sunny state of Florida is Theresa Alhayek. I apologize for messing up your name, Theresa.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
I'm delighted to have you on. Why don't we start, Theresa? Why don't we start with you? Who is Buzzy Bee?
Buzzy Bee, he is a great character that teaches kids resilience, perseverance, determination, but above all else, kindness, which we could use a lot of in today's world.
Amen. Rima, it's been a while. I'm an old man. I'm almost 100. I would really love to return to a time where we could see things in different perspectives and be okay with that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Who was did you and Theresa come together and create Buzzy Bee, or was this somebody's idea?
Theresa, I'll let you answer this one.
So, Buzzy Bee is not my first book. I wrote a book called Dream Big, Little Princess. And Rima, being just an awesome influencer in the Arab and Arab American community, I reached out to her and said, hey, can you share my book? It's an empowering book for little girls. And she thought it was great. She shared it. And then at that point was like, hey, what do you think about writing a book together? So that's how Buzzy Bee was born.
What a great origin story. That's fantastic. So Rima, did you have the idea of this brave little bee in your head?
Well, when we talked, I loved Theresa's story, and I loved seeing my daughters read it. And I told her about my, my wish to one day write a children's book. I've always loved writing. And when I had my children and reading their books, I just always thought in my head, I'd love to make a book for them that rhymes. And I just needed that push, and Theresa gave it to me. She's like, let's join forces. And we'd go back and forth on every word, on every, and we wanted to pick the bee because it's very neutral to girls and boys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's wonderful. Theresa, where did you get the courage, number one, to reach out to Rima and say, yo, you got a big following and you're famous. Can you promote my book a little bit?
To be honest, I didn't have the courage to reach out to her. My husband wrote the email.
Now I know, Theresa.
He wrote the email, and I was like, why did you do that? I'm not going to use like my lifeline on something as silly as this, but within minutes, I'm not even joking.
Lifeline.
She replied to me, and I was like flabbergasted, and so humbled. So yeah, she's an amazing person, and it's been incredible working with her.
So is Theresa, mom of 5, and works and did the book. So
awesome. That's, I think that's, it kind of fits in with brave Buzzy Bee.
Mm-hmm. That was brave.
Taking that chance.
Absolutely. And I haven't met Theresa in person, but we have so much ties. Like, we got pregnant at the same time, and then both our babies were born preemie on the same day, same afternoon.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. It was just crazy things that kept, so I have 4 babies. She has 5. And so when we get together, it's going to be quite an interesting scene.
Yes, yeah, that's what at 9, and I can picture it now. 9 at a table.
Party of 9.
Party of 1, and then you got to add the adults too.
Mm-hmm.
So some server somewhere is going to be delighted
to clean up after.
Yeah. So Rima, you mentioned that you thought like, wow, this is, I really want to write a kid's book. I see my kids, they're having so much fun reading this book. You have a full plate yourself. You're talking about how Theresa, has kids and a job, and she is still able to write. You have celebrity. You're working with the United Nations. You're a pretty busy person yourself. Where did you get the, I guess the energy to add one more thing to your?
I guess you could say it's a well-balanced life. I try to stay in routine and not be too hard on myself, and so when it came to this book, it was just one of those things that happened naturally. And I believe a lot in, God, and I felt like, okay, God put Theresa in my life for reasons, because when I read her book, I reminded me a lot of the story I wanted to do. So it was just something that, happened so naturally.
Yeah. And what was it like reading Theresa's book to your kids?
It was empowering, especially being from the Middle Eastern background. For someone to say that to girls is very empowering, because, well, it's 2025 and things have to change and equality has to happen. And so I love the way she did that book. So I was like, this would be great.
Yeah. It must be pretty cool to hear, Theresa.
It definitely is.
Yeah,
That one definitely didn't sell as much as I would have liked, but it opened the door to this one, and this has been life-changing, so I'm really blessed.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing is I remember I was really surprised. I finished the Da Vinci Code, and then I thought, like, boy, I can't wait for this guy to have another book. And I was very surprised to see that he'd already written 3 or 4 books before the Da Vinci Code, and they were going to bestseller. So, there's hope, Theresa.
There is. There's hope for all the writers that are listening. Yes, for sure.
That's fun.
I'm curious, Rima, you said you went back and forth with every word. Did you have a specific time that you met each day, or?
Well, yeah, around, that's what's beautiful about having, both of us being moms and stuff. It's like Theresa would keep me on track, which was great because I needed that. I've a busy life, and sometimes, I'll get clustered. So Theresa will keep me like, hey, let's finish this part. And, they're emailing us about this. And then I complete her on the other side where I'm all like, let's get the best agency to read this book. So we're like perfect team together. And yeah, so that's one thing.
We're also like typical moms. Like a lot of it got done when our kids were sleeping,
Yeah.
To like 2:00 in the morning, finessing the rhyming on some of these verses.
Absolutely. And one thing I did is I threw, because, I'm around the music life, with my husband, like the whole life we're around is music. So what we did is we tried to make this song with a hook, like a song. The story with a hook. So me and Theresa kept putting the same part in repetition, but kind of twisting it a little bit, because we thought repetition is like amazing, fond of learning, and then having that maybe later played as a song, So that's what's cool, is that I can have one of my husband's clients who sing it for us.
We also like that, we know a thing or two about children's books because Rima has 4 and I have 5. And we know, our kids like repetition. They like to participate when you're reading, especially when they're very little. So this gives them an opportunity to jump in and help finish the line or finish the page for you. So.
Yeah. And I'm really happy that, Rima, you're talking about the connection between music and a rhyming book, because I think a lot of authors, especially debut authors, kind of forget that, the story should rhyme, but you also have that thing meter. You have to think about that meter thing. It has to flow right.
We were shocked, Theresa and I, when we heard from Margaret from Penguin, who was amazing. We were so honored that she wanted our book. That rhyming was actually not. What did she say, Theresa? She said it's very rare to get. Yeah, she said it's very rare to get a good rhyming book, and we were like, we thought everything was gonna come in like ours. So that made it awesome. That Theresa's so good at grammar and teaching. So when we would rhyme, we'd have the right terms in English. But the cool part about the book is collaborating on, how do you say it? The fact that it came out now when music is in every movie, like Wicked. Like everything now is a musical, and everything my kids want to see, even that new Disney movie Red and everything, they just want to sing the part of. So it's cool that kind of like maybe they can one day turn it into like singing the part, because that's how kids, like Theresa was saying, they enjoy participating.
Yeah. Theresa, I'm wondering, you have this partner who has these connections. Are you thinking that maybe Brave Buzzy Bee is going to become an animated series or movie, or?
It definitely has come up in conversation, and Rima she's just a go-getter, she's the one she has big dreams, and, and, so why not? Well, I'd love for that to happen someday.
Yeah. I'm curious. You have this built-in audience at home. What do your kids think about Brave Buzzy Bee? We'll start with you, Rima.
Oh, well, they love the fact that I kept telling them how, they inspired the story, especially like the ending. So when the book, they would say, okay. But when the book actually came out, they were rushing to school. I see them holding it. I'm like, wow, they were, they didn't say it out loud, but they were so proud, and they made all their friends read it. And so I was like really happy to see that.
That's awesome. Theresa, what about you? What about your kids?
It's the same reaction. They are so proud. They told all their friends, all their teachers. They've read it every single night since I received my author copy. So I love it.
That's great.
Excited.
Theresa, one of the things that I've learned in doing this podcast, there's a lot about kids' books. I knew about kids' books because I read to my now adult kids every night, and we had a library of books. But when I started this, and I learned that it can take 3 or 4 years from the time a manuscript is bought till it actually hits the shelf, and that authors have to leave room for the illustrator to tell part of the story. Was that something that was hard for you first to learn for yourself and then explain to Rima?
It was so hard. So that publishing process really only applies for me to Brave Buzzy Bee. For Dream Big, Little Princess, I self-published. So it was a little bit of a shorter process. But traditionally publishing, it took over 3 years. So Rima and I, we really didn't tell anybody because we knew it was going to take so long, and anything could happen in those 3 years. Yeah. So we didn't tell anyone, and friends were asking me when we finally went live with the book, like, why didn't you tell us?
Yeah.
It's because it took 3 years for this whole process to come together, and we were so anxious to get started and start, see our book out on shelves, but we were all, we had to be patient. We learned patience in the process. Just be patient, little bee.
So, Rima, tell me a little bit more about Brave Buzzy Bee. What's the story that we're going to experience as we read this with our kids?
The reason this matters to me is if you come to our home, and my husband and I, we came from very tough backgrounds, but thank God we built a good life for ourselves. So when you come in, you see my husband's, music trophies, Grammys, Soul Train Awards, music videos. And then you look, mommy has a crown here. And so I never really picked it up because we don't put it out in your face. We kind of have my husband and I have an office. But when they started to have friends over and they got bigger and they started to speak and have opinions, I'd hear their friends go, whoa, are you going to do like your mom? Oh, are you going to be like your dad? And it's like, I didn't want them to think that this is what it is, that you have to have all these awards and you have to be, this person or special or, to feel that pressure. And that's what a lot of families do, right? So a lot of families, they push piano on their kid, but they don't stop to think, is that their dream or their child's dream? And through all the things we've went through since COVID, I think the only thing Theresa and I wanted to see our children is happy. That's it. Who cares about awards? Who cares about this? Just be happy, And so this book, what is awesome is how we changed the ending to the bee not winning, but the winning is the bee helping his friend who fell. That's a true winner. And so I love the fact that I'm like, yes, I wanted my children to read it for themselves to form that opinion that, hey, this is what winning is.
Yeah. Cool. And I forgot to mention, I don't want people thinking that Rima just, has a collection of crowns that she wears in her home. You were Miss USA. In fact, you were the first immigrant and first Arab woman to win Miss USA.
Thank you. Yes. It was a great honor. American dream, you could say.
Yeah. Theresa, where did that idea of flipping the switch and letting Buzzy Bee lose come in? Was that something that you both kind of dawned on you at the same time?
To be honest, no, it was part of the editing process. So the original story, it was influenced by Rima's background, kind of being like an underdog and winning Miss USA. And so we wrote it that way. And then one of the editing comments that we received was, well, could you somehow figure out a way to make Buzzy Bee lose? And we were like, that's a great idea. And we flipped the story, and it just changed the whole
thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's that like, Theresa, for you to have a story, it's there, and then to hear back from an editor like, yeah, I love everything about this except for the ending, change it.
It at first was like a gut punch, but it was really empowering. Like, it really made us sit back and think, and it changed the whole thing. And it's such a better book now. So I really do appreciate the whole editorial process.
I think that's important. We have a lot of aspiring and new authors that are listening to Reading with Your Kids. And so, that collaborative process, it's difficult sometimes to hear, oh, that's great, but you could do it better this way. Mm-hmm. But it usually ends up, making your project a lot better.
Yeah. At first I was like, Rima, how could this be? Like, the whole story is about how you won. And she was like, she said to me, you don't get it. The whole point was me being on that stage. That was me winning. And it just clicked. So yeah.
Thank you, Theresa. Thanks.
It's obvious that you have a great deal of affection for each other, and it's obvious that you're super happy that Brave Buzzy Bee is out there in the world and you're proud of it. I'm curious, are there going to be more collaborations from you two in the future?
We're hoping.
Yeah.
What we wanted to do, Jed, is to release this and see how the children react and how the parents feel, and then go proceed, because we do have ideas. We even have a few ideas for books for moms and dads, like just a lot of things that me and Theresa want to do, even informative books. Like, I know kids don't know anything about taxes, we could go so many ways with it. But obviously, we wanted to see how this book reacts and the response we'll get from Penguin, and then take that and go into our second project well equipped with what we feel would be great success for the next one.
Yeah. Well, you certainly have the credentials to write a parenting book, I would think.
Yay!
Time between you.
Yes. My husband laughs sometimes when, going through the process of having children. He's like, they teach you everything in school, but they don't teach you about what women go through to have kids. He's like, what comes after. He's like, no one told us what comes after. It's this. So, yeah, that was something that came to our mind too. So it's fun.
Yeah. Wow. This is, really, it's been a fun time speaking to both of you.
Thank you.
Theresa, I noticed that there's at least one tour event that you're going to both be at, I think.
Yeah.
Are you looking forward to that?
Very much. Yeah, my kids are very excited.
Awesome.
In LA.
Are you going to do a whole tour of a number of different stops, or is it just one right now?
So far right now we have one, but, God willing, there will be more in the future.
Awesome. Well, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Brave Buzzy Bee. Theresa, first, do you have a website for yourself and your other book?
I have, for my other book, no, it's on Amazon, Dream Big, Little Princess. But for Brave Buzzy Bee, we have a website, bravebuzzybee.com. And you can also find it on Amazon, Target, the Penguin website.
Barnes and Noble,
basically anywhere that sells books. Yeah.
And we just have the Brave Buzzy Bee Instagram, which we're hoping, if it later on turns into more animated and stuff, people can know from following.
Awesome. And Rima, is there a website that we can visit to learn more about you?
RimaFakih.com.
Awesome. We had, and one of the things we always love to do is to encourage our listeners to go to their local bookstore, and you can ask for the book if it's not there in the shelf. And we love when we hear that listeners have gone to their public library and encourage the library to bring it to their shelf.
Yes, absolutely.
Rima, Theresa, thank you so much for creating Buzzy Bee, and thank you for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you. We hope to talk again.
It's been a great opportunity. Thank you.
Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. My friends, I am so excited. We have a brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read announcement. The Adventures of Toby Baxter, Book 4, I Heart River Home, written by Tim Wright, is our latest Reading with Your Kids certified great read. This is a fantastic book. Tim Wright continues this vibrant, imaginative journey of Toby Baxter as he returns to the enchanting world of River Home. This fourth installment in the series combines humor, action, and heartfelt lessons, all wrapped up in a quest guided by a new compass marked love. The story opens with Toby's life in Minneapolis, humorously grounded in relatable family moments like movie nights and school adventures. But the normalcy doesn't last. An ominous invitation from River Home draws him back into a world where danger and destiny collide. Guided by author, a mysterious chronicler of his adventures, Toby discovers a new quest centered on love in all of its forms, courage, sacrifice, and honor. As he grapples with personal fears and a growing awareness of his feelings for Rainey, Toby is thrust into a battle against looming threats. The compass of love isn't just a trinket. It's a thematic anchor that underscores the deeper meanings of connection, loyalty, and self-discovery. This book is a delightful blend of high-stakes adventure, emotional growth, and fantastical elements. The writing is engaging with moments that evolve into laughter, tears, and suspense. While this book primarily appeals to young adults and middle grade readers, its themes and humor make it a fantastic read for any age. The ending skillfully leaves readers eager for more, suggesting that this is only the beginning of Toby and his friend's journey. With its heartfelt storytelling and engaging world building, this book is a must-read for fans of magical realism and character-driven fantasies. We love it. We think you're going to love it too. It's The Adventures of Toby Baxter, I Heart River Home, Book 4 in the Adventures of Toby Baxter series. Hey, my friends, would you like to bring a little warmth and magic into your home? Let me introduce you to Welsh Mountain Candles, hand-poured on a working Amish farm in Lancaster County. These all-natural, toxin-free candles are made from palm wax with a stunning crystallized glow, rich coconut apricot wax for a creamy finish, and essential oils for a pure, refreshing scent. Whether you're winding down, setting the mood, or just love a great candle, Welsh Mountain Candles are crafted with care and made to be shared. Visit welshmountaincandles.com. Use the promo code JED10 for 10% off your order today. Light up your home with Welsh Mountain Candles, where every candle tells a story. Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Join us right now from the beautiful nation of Canada. Our guest is returning to Reading with Your Kids to celebrate a brand new picture book, Hot Cocoa and Courage. It's part of our guest Building Courage series. Please welcome back to the show, George Neeb. Hey, George, how are you?
I'm good, Jed. Thanks for having me back to the show.
I'm delighted to have you back on. We've had so much fun talking about your historical picture books in the past. This is a little diversion from that.
Yeah, I've written some books in the past about museums and different ancient cultures. So this time, the Building Courage series is about my time building my cabin with my sons. So it's a biographical picture book series, and I'm having a lot of fun illustrating the books as well.
Awesome. So tell us about building a cabin with your kids. That could be a podcast.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Where is this cabin?
I have a cabin. We have a family cabin. I guess the closest town would be Perry Sound. So there's Georgian Bay is part of Lake Huron. So Georgian Bay has a town in Canada, Perry Sound, and I'm close to that. So it's probably the closest thing you could say to wilderness. It's off-grid. It was just vacant land that I bought about 20 years ago, and decided that it would be really fun to camp on it. And then as we camped, we decided, well, maybe a cabin would be fun to do. And I built the cabin that's on the land, and my kids helped. So I thought, well, this would be a great picture book series. So I've had a lot of fun reminiscing about the past and creating the characters, which are my kids when they were younger, and telling the story of building this cabin.
Awesome. Now, Perry Sound, am I correct in thinking that that's where a very famous Boston athlete grew up?
Yes, Bobby Orr is from Perry Sound, and the Orr family still is in town. They own a butcher shop, I believe. You'll see it. So there's still remnants, and I know Bobby Orr's picture is on a mural on the side of a building also. So yeah, that is claim to fame. Yep.
There you go. All right. Well, I love the book already. How can I not, since it takes place in that hallowed ground? So you were telling me before we started recording that Hot Cocoa and Courage is about a trip that you took up to the cabin with your son.
Yeah. So the first book talks about building the cabin, and then the second book that just came out is about a winter trip to the cabin. So it was sort of a continuation of the story. In the first book, it's all about the construction, and the title comes from the fact that my son, well, all my sons were always a little hesitant to swim in the lake because we saw a big snapping turtle one time. So as kids, they were always afraid of the snapping turtle. And I kept saying to them, look, the snapping turtle's afraid of you. You've got to, just get over it, and this and that. And as time went on, the kids got more and more courage, and eventually figured out that by doing giant cannonballs into the water, the turtle would not be around. So that sort of became part of the book, and gaining this courage from, constructing this cabin together. So now in the new book, it's all about, well, wait a minute, the cabin was so much fun in the summer. In the book, my son says, I would love a winter cabin trip. And the character is also myself, says, well, that's going to take a lot of courage also. And my son says, well, what about putting in a wood stove? And so the story becomes this father-son project of putting the wood stove in and then making this trip up to the cabin, which is quite, in real life, also quite a journey because we're on water access. So you have to get across the lake. You have to bring everything with you. We're off grid. So it takes a lot of preparation. So that's sort of what the second book is about, this courage in a different way of surviving in the winter.
I was going to say, it takes courage to jump in any body of water in Canada at any time of year, because I've jumped into a few ponds up in Maine, and cold does not describe it properly.
Yeah, surprisingly, the lake we're on, it's a small lake, so it actually warms up to a nice. I find it fine to swim in. I know bigger bodies of water in Canada, like Georgian Bay, never seem to warm up, but our lake, the temperature wouldn't keep you out. It was this giant snapping turtle that always seemed to arrive when I had guests. I found also it would hang around, and I'd say, oh, we don't really see a lot of wildlife and stuff. And then sure enough, this big snapping turtle would be hanging around right in the swimming area. So it sort of became an ongoing joke, but, there's very little. I seem to just see wildlife when I have guests. This summer, we had a water snake that swam along and touched somebody's hand that was floating in a raft. And I said, that's the only time I've ever seen a water snake in 20 years is of course when you have company. But, actually, the water's pretty good. I spent some time in Florida, and I'll tell you, I wouldn't swim in a lake in Florida, but I will in Canada. So we don't have gators.
No, no, no. Yeah. My son lives in Florida, and he says the best way to tell if there's an alligator in a body of water is to see if it's wet. And
Yeah.
if it's wet, there's an alligator.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy, it's been quite a while because my beautiful wife is not a fan of the wilderness and camping and things like that. But I had so much fun being out in the wilds of Nova Scotia and Maine and just being out in the wilderness by myself in a tent or with friends. It really is a phenomenal way to not only connect with nature, but also to take some time and kind of connect and connect with yourself.
Yeah, I love the whole self-reliance and, raising three boys. I'm so glad I had that cabin to do that because spending their summers there, they got all this time outside, learning skills, campfires, it was fishing, canoeing, kayaking. It was wonderful. And they say that now, how thankful they were for those summers they had, at the cabin. So, and we all still meet at the cabin and, enjoy it as a family property and extended family too. And friends come every year. So it's wonderful. But the, self-reliance part of it, I really enjoy, being off grid like that and figuring out ways to still be comfortable, but living in a more sustainable way. Up there is fun and simplified life. You don't have near the stuff you have at home and you don't need it when you're there. It's just all about enjoying the outdoors, surviving, being comfortable. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I'm imagining right now if a family is reading Hot Cocoa and Courage together, one of the first questions a kid might ask is, how do they charge their phones? Where do they put the video games? I'm imagining that there are a lot of kids out there who can't imagine being in the wilderness, off grid.
Yeah. And I think as soon as they got there, they would suddenly love it. We do charge cell phones. I have a solar panel with a battery that you can charge things. I can run some lights. Everything's amazing now as far as using so little power. Like LED lights are amazing. You can run LED lights for hardly any power. So it's like a 12-volt battery. We can charge phones, charge a radio, have a little bit of light. We use that also for a trolling motor on the boat. We don't have a gas boat. It's a small lake, and everybody has decided that for environmental reasons, we won't have gas motors. So we use battery trolling motors, which is great, or canoeing, kayaking, to get around. Water, we bring our drinking water, but we use lake water for, dishes, bathing, swimming, that kind of thing. And then, the only other thing would be people always ask about the toilet, about facilities, and we have a composting toilet, which surprisingly is amazing. It's an amazing invention where the waste just becomes soil that you can use, dump back in the woods after a certain amount of time. So It's comfortable.
One of the questions I had down here was, since Hot Cocoa and Courage was based on building the wood stove or installing the wood stove in the wintertime, if you're going to write a book about installing that facility.
Yeah, I mean it's mentioned in the book. I don't go into obviously all the extras kind of special safety precautions and things like that. The father talks about following the safety manual and a few things that they do, but the book isn't really about a how-to guide. It's sort of just helps with the story. By having the wood stove, they can go up and visit the cabin in the winter, and the hot cocoa comes in where the son sort of is trying to convince his father that it would be fun to go to the cabin. The father's a little hesitant, and then the son says, well, we could make hot cocoa. And the dad says, oh, you hadn't yet hot cocoa. So it's sort of a way to tempt, this is going to be a lot of fun. And the story involves, some adventures when they get there. But the wood stove part is, just sort of part of the story, not a how-to guide. I'm not giving instructions on the specific engineering or safety and everything of doing that.
Now I'm wondering, because we had a guest on last year who was calling in from Alberta, and the day that she was speaking to me, it was minus 40 degrees Celsius in Alberta. Does it get that cold at your cabin?
No, the last few years have been so mild, but this year when I went up, there's been a ton of snow this year, and I was back to sort of the way you remember it long ago. As a kid almost, the snow we've had, but I think the coldest it's ever been is in Celsius for me would be minus 25, but I'm not good at converting to Fahrenheit, so I'm not sure what that would be. But yeah, it can get cold. I mean, it hasn't been recently, but this year when I went, it was more the snow that made it difficult to get to the cabin because it was so deep. It was up to my knees, and to trudge through that is, it's a lot of work. And then when you get there, you're soaking wet. So,
wow,
the snow would be a bigger thing to me than the temperature. The temperature with the wood stove inside our cabin, I have insulation and stuff. It can be comfortable. But the snow is crazy.
Yeah. I'm imagining one of the things that families could be inspired to do more things together. Maybe not go and build a cabin in the wilderness, but just the idea of, hey, let's do more together.
Yeah, the reviews and stuff that I've got for the book, mostly that's what people comment on. It's a family-centered book, family-themed, father and son, bonding together in the outdoors. So that's what people like about the story, I think, is that it's encouraging a love of nature, self-reliance, building courage, self-esteem sort of things are the themes of the book. And I think that really resonates with a lot of people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I remember from our conversations about your historical books, you experimented with a lot of different illustrating styles. Are the illustrations for these two books, are they more traditional, or did you go out and experiment even more?
Yeah, I did a lot of experimenting for this story to try to figure out how to tell it, because where I am, I mean, everywhere you can find beauty all over the world, but this area of Canada, of Ontario, to me is so beautiful because it's the Canadian Shield. So it's very rocky, full of lakes, evergreen trees, a few maple and oak, but you get mostly pine forests. So it's beautiful, and the scenery that I have up there is so beautiful that did a lot of experimenting. How am I going to capture that? So I figured out, you know what? Why aren't I using actual photographs for the background? Because I'm trying to replicate this beauty, and the beauty's there in these photographs. So it got me doing a lot of experimenting with mixed media. So I'm taking the photograph. But then I'm using paper cutouts of the characters. So I still draw them traditionally, color them, use some texture, different things on those. And then they're put on top of the photographs. So you've got a mixture of real and animated. And then for the cabin, I ended up building a model of the cabin. I used actual wood and different things to make this little model. And then as I was in the book, the first book is building it, as I was building it in the book, I was building the model so that the model sort of replicates the construction technique. So it's actually kind of step by step along with the book, I was building the model. So it's kind of three things. I've got the wooden model, the photographs for the background, and then the characters, which are paper. And when they're photographed, I use a slight filter. It kind of puts them all together that they look like the same media, but they're actually different. So it sort of did some experimenting, and I really liked how it looked. And that seems to be what a lot of people are saying in the reviews for the book, sort of a really original technique, but people like it.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. I love that you enjoy experimenting so much with that. Has that always been part of your creative process?
Yeah, and that's the part that I love is the creation of the illustrations, and experimenting. And it's never, when I start out, I always think, oh, am I going to be able to do this? And I experiment and experiment till I think, till my own sort of standard of what I want it to look like I achieve. So yeah, I never know from the beginning what it's going to look like. So that's a lot of fun for me. But because I'm sort of working at my own pace and I'm not on a deadline for it, I can do that. If somebody said to me, I need this book illustrated in 3 days, I don't think I could do it, because I don't work well under pressure, just kind of, bang, 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 here it is. I love the experimenting. If I don't like it, I'll do it again. And, in some of these illustrations and stuff, I've probably, worked on it maybe 15 times. There's for each illustration, just getting it right. And that's the part I like, so I don't mind doing it. But I don't think it would work in a traditional sense of deadlines, because I do take a lot of time to experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm not a big fan of deadlines myself. We're talking before we started recording, and you retired from teaching, but do you feel that you're still teaching in some way through your illustrations in writing?
Yeah, I mean, the books that I've written are always books that I would have wanted as a teacher. That's sort of what got me going into picture books. I wrote my first picture book while I was still teaching, and I taught grade 4. And up in Canada here, we do a lot of, in grade 4, it's about ancient cultures. So you study Egypt, you study Greece, you study different societies from the past and relate them to the present. And, studying those cultures, I was always fascinated by the art. And my students were fascinated by the art. So what a great way to teach those units then with picture books. And that's what I was always looking for, picture books to help teach social studies. And my first book about ancient Egypt was sort of what I thought as a teacher teaching about ancient Egypt would love. So I illustrated that book in Egyptian style, so that the teachers would have a book, as they're teaching about Egypt in language, they can also read this picture book, and the kids can talk about the pictures and what did you learn from the book about what you've been studying about Egypt. So that's kind of what I wanted. So that really got me writing the ancient culture books. So I wrote 2 about ancient Egypt, and then I did one on China, Duel with the Dragon, about the first emperor of China. And that one I illustrated in sort of the technique of Chinese silk paintings and dyed the paper in tea to get the look of ancient Chinese artwork. And then I did 2 books about at the museum with Young Dragons Press, and those are about ancient Greece and then Mesopotamia. So I've sort of done a lot of ancient cultures books that teachers, I think, would really like in their classroom. So now I thought this is kind of something different for a break. Write something more contemporary, but it's always sort of been the art that's inspired me.
One of the things I love about your book is that it's going to give families here in the States, and in Canada and around the world, a chance to get to know Canada a little bit better, because it's such a fascinating country. Is it 80%, 85% of the population lives within a couple of hours of the border, but then it's just vast. It's one of the biggest countries in the world.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unused space, a lot of space that isn't livable in our modern kind of understanding of what we want as far as cities and roads. But yeah, we live close to the U.S. border. I mean, our lifestyle is very similar to the U.S. People always, yeah, when I'm down in Florida or something on vacation, people will say, oh, it must be cold there. Well, yeah, it's cold, but it's like, there's states that are probably colder. I bet Michigan gets more snow than where I live here in southern Ontario. But as far as, the wilderness areas and camping, it's beautiful. A lot of Americans, I think, like to come up to these areas in Canada so that they can experience that and have properties or just camp or just enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, overall, our lifestyles are pretty similar. I think we just maybe have a bit of a harsher winter.
Indeed. But, people talk about the people in Boston, in New England, and they, were kind of gruff and rough and, whatever. And I think the expression is we're not very friendly, we're not very nice, but we'll do everything for you. We'll be out there, we'll have you back. And people say they blame it on the cold. But it's colder in Canada, but you guys are all polite and friendly.
Yeah, I guess we are polite. Yeah, we'll take that. That's a compliment. Yeah.
That is a good thing. George, tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Hot Cocoa and Courage and Building Courage.
Yeah, well, my books are available everywhere online at all major retailers. I have a website also, my name, georgeneeb.ca. You can get your books through me also if you want signed copies. But yeah, they're everywhere online.
Awesome. We've had a great time talking about Hot Cocoa and Courage, brand new picture book from our guest, George Neeb. Hey, George, thanks so much for being back with us.
Thank you, Jed. It was great.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. To make sure you don't miss a moment, please be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We love the iHeartRadio app. We love Good Pod, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. And if you are so inclined, we would love it if you could leave us a 5-star review. It really, really helps other families, other educators, other caregivers find out about the show and join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We'd also love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedly Magic on X. We have a great YouTube channel, youtube.com/Reading With Your Kids. And of course, our website where you can read all of our Reading With Your Kids certified great read reviews is readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. First, want to thank our guest. Thanks to George Neeb for coming back on to celebrate Hot Cocoa and Courage. Also want to thank Rima, Fakih, and Theresa Alhayek. Please be sure to check out Brave Buzzy Bee. Want to congratulate Tim Wright again. His wonderful book, The Adventures of Toby Baxter, I Heart River Home, book number 4 in the series, is our latest Reading with Your Kids certified great read. I also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.